Hello and welcome to today's webinar. This is Church360 Unite, getting others involved. Today we're going to be talking about how to use your Church360 Unite website to invite people to log in and participate in groups and view calendar events, sign up for events, really make your website interactive. This is the third session in our 4-session training course. We've been doing this one a day throughout the course of this week. If you're watching the recording, then you can jump in at any time. There might be some things that you missed that would be helpful, but otherwise these are pretty self-contained sessions. For the most part, you don't really need to hear anything from the previous days to use the tools that we're going to talk about today. Now, I will mention some of those things from time to time, so if you don't understand something, don't worry about it. But we'll get into that in just a minute. My name, again, is Peter Frank. I am the Senior Manager of Marketing Technology. My email address is on the screen. You are always welcome to reach out to me. I'll also provide contact information for our support team. If you've got ideas on how to improve the software or new things you'd like to do, let me know. If you've got some questions about how to use the software, that's where our support team will come into play. Now, one of our support team members, Jordan, is looking out for the chat today. So I appreciate you being here, Jordan. We've got a wonderful team in our support group, a number of people who are just very talented at helping answer questions. They also have tools to help log into your account and walk you through the process. Few things before we get started. For our training, we have 4 different sessions. We talked about setting up your website, really the basics of getting your design down, your style, and all of that. And you'll see what we set up in just a few moments. We talked yesterday about adding content to your site, so we've already established how to use those tools. We'll use them again today as we're building out our groups, but I'm not going to go into that same level of detail. Now, today we're talking about getting others involved, all about inviting people to log in and use your site, being able to put information that only members need to know about. You don't have to put it on your public site. Put it on the place where only members can see it. Then tomorrow we'll get into a number of different advanced techniques. We're going to be jumping all around the place tomorrow, so that is for those advanced users who really want to take things to the next level or integrate with different tools that aren't necessarily part of Unite but are very helpful. Again, today is number 3. If you haven't seen those other 2, I encourage you to watch them. You don't have to have seen them in order to use the tools that we're going to be talking about today, but it might be helpful. A few housekeeping items before we go too far. I am planning 75 minutes for presentation. I've got a lot of materials to cover, so we may go over that. We'll see. I'm going to do my best. Those last 15 minutes of the webinar are dedicated for questions and answers. So if you have any questions, that's the time I'll get to them. We are recording this webinar. That's the most common question I get. I hit the start record button right before we began. So we'll be uploading this to our resource center and sending it out in an email tomorrow morning. You are muted. All of you who are attending live today are muted on the webinar. That's because I can't have you all talking out loud at the same time. We'll be talking over ourselves. So you're muted, but that doesn't mean I don't want your participation. I certainly do. Please ask questions throughout. You can put them into the questions section, and Jordan will be on the line, and he'll be answering those as we go. All right, well, we've already got a couple in there, but it looks like they've already been answered. So let's go ahead and keep moving. My assumption for today, or at least several assumptions, I'm assuming you're a brand new user of Church360 Unite. I'm going to talk as if you haven't seen this before, but it's very likely you have. I just don't want you to feel like you're in the wrong place if you're like, well, he's only going to cover things that I know. Now, we're going to get into some advanced techniques and maybe some strategies that you haven't thought of before, but I am going to start at the ground level. I'm also assuming you have access to all the features, that administrator level access. We're going to be looking at different access roles which provide different access. So we'll be getting into seeing what those other roles have, but I'm assuming you have the ability to assign those roles. And then also I'm assuming you attended the previous sessions. There may be some of you who didn't, and that is just fine. Like I said before, these tools are kind of self-contained. You can use them as you need without knowing everything else in the software. But you might hear me refer to a few things that I've already trained on. The training goal for today. At the end of the day, you will know how to invite people to log in and interact in groups on your Church360 Unite website. That's what we're going for. There's a few other things we'll cover, but that's the primary purpose for today. First off, we're going to look at those roles. That's the first thing that you need to know about before you invite people is what will they be able to do? You don't want to give them the wrong role. Then we're going to talk about users and how they can log in and see that specific role of users, which is going to be the most common role on your site. We'll talk about mailing lists and what you can do in terms of communication with those users. Then we'll dig into an event. We'll set up a reoccurring event, show you how you can invite people, what their experience would look like. And finally, we'll get into groups. And groups is a very big topic, and we'll try to cover as much as possible. Some of it overlaps with what we've covered before. Some of it will be brand new. Well, if you haven't already signed up for a Church360 Unite account, you can do so right now at 360unite.com. This is a free 30-day trial for all of our features. And you may have heard us mention the other day that we have launched a free plan of Church360 Unite. That free plan does not include any of the features that we're talking about today. So I would encourage you to start your free 30-day trial of the full featured version, because that free plan is very basic. It's the things we talked about, some of the things we talked about yesterday. But today, as we get into involving users, that's all on the paid side of things. Let's go ahead and log into the software. This is our site that I shared the other day. This is Christ Community Church. It is a fictional church, and there's no real information that I'm going to be sharing today. Now, if you see the pictures and everything, those are all stock photography photos that I purchased for use in this webinar. On Monday, we styled this. We added the logo for Christ Community Church. We added the background, kind of set our styles on the text. Not kind of, we actually did. And so you can see all of that here. These things, these button-like objects are just a different kind of style. So if you're curious on how to get your site looking like this, you can watch those previous webinars. Now, right now I'm logged in as an administrator, and we're going to be doing a lot of logging in, so I didn't want to show you that to start. But our first place that we're going to go is here under users. Now, this tab, users, is only available if you are an administrator. You will not see this if you're any other kind of role. We're going to get into the roles in just a minute, but let me talk about how I have people in here. I have people in here right now because I'm connected to our church management software, Church360 members. These are all fictional people. We set them up in a training webinar a couple weeks ago when I was talking about that software. If you have a church management software from CTS, either Church360 members or Shepherd staff, you can do the same thing. I'll be talking about that in a little bit of detail tomorrow. If you don't have one of those connected to your Unite site, you're going to see this screen with only the people that you manually created. And that's okay. It works in almost the same way. There's one key area that I'm going to show you that is not available for those of you who aren't connected to one of our church management software. But let's talk about how you can add people. You'll notice that, and this is a little bit small, I'm going to zoom in so you can see a little more. You'll see that we have the name, email, role, last sign in, and listed. Those are all important things. Let's talk about first inviting people to this site. So if you go here down to add people, down in the lower right hand corner, you get this modal, as we call it, this pop-up window. The requirements of adding people to your account are just first name and last name. If you want to add users, you need to add an email as well. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my name again. I'm already in here. Let's say we'll put a different last name in, and we'll call me Peter Franklin, just so we can distinguish between them. Now, the email address that I'm going to put in really is only if I want to be invited to participate on the site, which I think you want to do for everyone. But you may not have an email address for everyone. And so I'm just going to go ahead and leave this blank for right now. Now, if you want to bring in a bunch of people at once, we allow you to do that through this CSV template. Now, a CSV file is basically an Excel spreadsheet that is saved differently on the background. It's a comma separated value document. But I'll show you what it looks like. If you download it and open it, it's really basic. You have 3 columns, that same 3, first name, last name, and email. Well, if you do the same kind of thing, let's say we put in Peter Franklin. See, I can't even spell Franklin. That's not actually my last name. and we'll just say peter.franklin@cph.org. I can go ahead and save this on my desktop. Go here to browse, drop it down on my desktop. All right, so that's saved now. Let me close out of this, go back to add people. It's blank now. If I go and click import from CSV and I bring in that file that I just updated, oops, gotta go to the right place. All that it's gonna do is it's gonna pre-populate those fields. So it saves you time. If you have a database of your members with their email addresses, export it to Excel, put it in this template and load it in here. It's just gonna save you the time of typing. Now I'm gonna go ahead and clear out my email address. If I click add, that name has been added to the list. See, there it is. Now, nothing else has happened. They are just in my database. And so I'm not gonna do anything because I wanna show you what a person without an email address looks like when you add them in. But earlier today, I added an email address with a name, and I just called this testing role. Now you notice I also use this same email address for Anita Gomez in a previous training. This testing role is meant to be very clear for me that this is the one that I'll log in and out of. So I have this role set to designer right now. We'll talk about roles in just a minute. But when you add somebody, let's go back to Franklin. You'll see that it says successfully added one person, and that checkbox next to that new person will be automatically checked, regardless of how many people you add. I just added one, but you could add 10 and they'll all be checked, because then the next thing you want is to change their role, actions for selected users. And if I click change role, it's gonna pop up this window. Well, this is pretty small, and so in case you can't see it, I'm gonna switch back to my PowerPoint. The roles that are available, and I'm also putting these in reverse order than they are on the screen because I want to talk about them from the most amount of access to the least. The first role is the one we're logged into right now, is administrator. This allows you to do everything. You want to be very careful who you put as an administrator, because not only can they manage your site, your themes, your styles, all of that, they can manage your users and interact with all the different groups. So it's very important that you limit this to somebody that is very trustworthy. If you have a new, if you have a member of your youth group who's very talented at technology, can build you a website in minutes, that's still probably not the best person to put in this admin role. You want somebody who has some kind of tie to the church, usually an employee, maybe a trusted volunteer who is managing these details. Now, some of these features that we're going to be talking about today require that admin. And so if you want them to manage users, they need to be an administrator. Well, let's talk about that young kid who is not necessarily as responsible as an employee, but is very tech savvy. That person may be best to put here as a designer. That designer role allows them to manage the content and the themes, some of the technical side of things, without getting into those details of users. They can't, cut off your access if they get upset or something. We're talking about somebody who knows the tech side of things. You trust them enough on that side without necessarily giving them the communication tools of users. Now, you might have somebody who doesn't have those tech skills, but does manage content. This might be somebody who is like your office administrator, who is very wary on technology, but can update announcements and enter in information. That's what we would call the publisher role. They can edit content. Now, just content on those pages. We're going to look at these in just a moment. The last role that we have is just a standard user. They may log into Unite, they may participate in the different tools that we have for users, but they can't change your site unless you give them a little extra authority on a group. And we'll look at that near the end today. Now, the last one that you have there is none. They may not log into Unite. The typical role of the none user is that they are listed on the directory and nothing more. Now, if you don't have an email address for a person, this is their only option. You see, emails are required for logging into the site. And so you might have some people who either don't have an email address, who don't feel comfortable giving you their email address, or who have it and you just haven't received it from them. That's the role they're going to have to be. That doesn't mean they can't be listed. That doesn't mean they have to be excluded from your directory. They just can't participate because you need an email address. One other thing with users and email addresses. Every individual needs to have their own email address. I know that there's some families who will share an email address. That doesn't work. And in today's society, email addresses are your token for getting access to things. And while people may share an email address, they might have to share a device as well. If you have a phone, it's asking for an email address. Email addresses are free in a variety of different ways. So if people don't have one, they need to get one in order to use Unite. And I've had a lot of requests for, well, why can't you just use credentials? Why do they have to have an email address? Why not just a username? Well, that goes into security. If you only have a username and you lose your password, how are you going to reset it? We can't have administrators managing passwords. There's too much of a security risk there. So no one has access to the passwords. In fact, even on our team, no one has access to the passwords. They're double encrypted, meaning that we can't even go into the database and see the email address. It's encrypted so that our developers can't even look at it. So that's why. That's a tough pill to swallow for some people. I get it. Especially if you have older members who are not tech savvy, who can only manage one email address. Well, I'm sorry, that's just one of those technical requirements that we have because of security, and security is of the utmost importance. All right, I'll get off my soapbox. Let's go back into Unite. You'll notice that I like I said before, I did it in reverse order. The most common one is user, and so that's why we have that second. None is the default. User is the next one. And if you select user or any of these other roles for somebody who doesn't have an email address, it will let you know, but you can invite them by entering in a new email address. Well, what I've already done is I have already set up my test user, my testing role. I just saw a note here. Peter may need to say they can look at the website. He continues to log in. So I'm wondering if folks realize the difference. There is a difference between looking at the website and logging in. So Karen, I'll show you that in just a second. I'm being very intentional about what I'm saying because anybody can look at the website. But if you log into the website, there's a difference. Those who have the none role are just like anyone else. They can look at the website, but they can't log in. So I'll show you those differences. So I've set up my testing role as a designer. That's the may edit content and themes. So you see it says that role right here. Whoops. All right, testing role and designer. All right, let me go ahead and log out. Click sign out here. When I click sign out, it'll take me right back in. And Karen, no need to apologize for interrupting. I want to make sure I'm being clear. So thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, I'll show all of that in those specifics in just a few moments. All right, let's go ahead and click sign in. And I'm going to type in that email address. And remember my password. All right, remember I'm signing in under a designer role. So this designer role doesn't have access to the settings up at the top, doesn't have access to users, but does have access to the themes, to activities, posts, and pages, all of the content and design kind of things. So if that makes sense, you can see here they still have edit page, they can go in and change things. They still have a significant amount of ability to change your site. Now let's go ahead and I'm going to sign out again. And like I said, we're going to be doing a lot of signing in and signing out as I change these roles. Part of that is I can't be logged in as a different user under multiple sessions. Sessions meaning my browser understands that I'm logged in right now. That can be a little bit confusing. Sorry, I got to remember each password. I have them set differently. It's probably not the best strategy for leading a webinar. If I go back into users now, I will go and change my CTS can be my testing role. I'm going to change this role to the publisher. Now remember, the publisher can just edit content. All right, change that role. We'll go ahead and sign out. And I would also encourage you, if you have a generic email address at your congregation, you could do the same process so that you can see exactly what people are able to log in and log out as. Now they will show up in the directory. We'll take a look at that in a few minutes, that testing role. But you can just do this at the beginning to make sure that you know what's going on, and then you can figure out who gets the access, the appropriate access. All right, so now we're logging in as an editor. It's almost the exact same, except themes are gone. So this kind of person cannot manage the look and feel of your site. However, they can edit the content. And that's an important thing for people to be able to do. So I'll go over here to Worship Online. I moved all of my heading information, my style sheet test over there. An editor can click Edit Page. They can change any of the details about that page. They can go in here, edit the content. They can go change settings, edit cell type, all of those things that we talked about the other day. This is a really good role for your church workers like pastors or DCEs, deaconesses, who really need to be able to edit their content, especially if they're doing like a blog or just need to manage information that's being shared. You're not giving them too much access by giving them the access to edit the content. You'll trust these people to communicate with everybody in a large group setting. You should be able to trust them to edit the website. They can't break things, not too easily. They could break a page by messing up the content, but they can't shut down your whole site. So even if they're not tech savvy, I recommend giving those people you trust access to edit the content. For one, that allows more people to be able to manage it if they need to. You know, there's a lot that goes on in the church, and if you have multiple roles, that means that you have more people who, you know, probably a larger congregation. You shouldn't have that all reside with just one person, especially if something happens to that person. Let's go ahead and log out again, and we'll go back and change this person to user. And this is the kind of role that I really want to hit on today. It will take me a second to go back. And I apologize for my typing. I've had some suggestions for disconnecting my phone or my microphone from my computer. It actually is a completely separate microphone and a completely separate keyboard, but it's all on the same desk, so it can sometimes sound a little bit loud. I'll go to users. I'm going to go back to testing role and change this role to a user. And this is what it'll look like when you can log into the site. You log in as a user. This is the kind of role I recommend for all of your members. We'll go click sign in. And this will look a little bit different. You see here, it says signed in successfully, but I'm not seeing the admin bar. In fact, I'm not even seeing edit page. That's because a user doesn't have the access to modify the site. They do have the access to view the things that members can see or users. So if you look up here, I can go now under connect, I have members. Let me show you what, and we're going to go into incognito mode, which basically is a version of my browser that doesn't store information about my sessions. If you look here, the one on the left is signed in. The one on the right is signed out because you have the sign in button available. If I go to my menus on each, they look the same from a high level standpoint. But if I drill down farther under connect, this is where it starts to get different. On my left-hand side where I'm logged in, I have the members page. Well, why do I have members here and not on the public side? Well, it's all about security. You'll see if I go to this page, I get the whole member directory. I also get this little icon that says members only to assure everyone not the entire world can't see your address. They can't even get to that page if you look on the right-hand side. That's the difference. Now, let me go ahead and expand this so you can see all of it. This member directory is everybody that's in your database, as long as they are listed. So here's Peter Franklin that I added before. He has no email address. Some of these have email addresses, but they're not listed. We put that authority into the member's hand to choose the information they want to share. You see, there it is. If I go here up into the sign in button, my profile, it says welcome testing. When I click on that, testing is my name. This is my profile. I can go in and edit my profile. So as a member, I can come in here and say, no, I'd rather be referred to as Joe Tester. And my preferred name is Joe. So Joe Tester, and then I can update my email address. I can say whether it's listed or not. I can put in my phone number, mark it as listed. And then I can also choose whether or not I want to be shown in the member directory. If I opt out of being shown, the church can't opt me back in. So their level of privacy is respected above all things. Let's go ahead and click Update Profile. Now here's the cool thing. I've updated my information. Not only is it updated on the website, but it's updated in my church management software, because the source of truth for what Joe wants to be called is Joe. And so if he wants to change his name, he wants to change his phone number or email address, he can do that. And it's automatically updated. Now when I go back to the member directory, and I look for test, there it is, Joe Tester. Now my household name is still under role. Now typically that won't change once you add them in. I just have a different last name because this is testing. As an administrator, you can go change their household in Church360 members, but not in Unite. You see, that is the big difference. When you have a church management software, you can manage households. If you don't have a church management software and you just add people, they will all be shown individually. There will be no concept of household. It'll just show Dave Abbott and Sue Abbott and Lacey Abbott and Jacob Abbott. Not quite as good, but that's what you have access to because there is no concept of households within Unite. So it's borrowing that information from the church management software. That's that one distinction between what you can do with our software versus just bringing in your users. So it's or your members, the people in your database. So it's a little bit different and a little bit better if you use our software, but it's not a huge downside if you don't. There we go. So that is the member directory. Let's go ahead and split my screen again. And I'll find my other one. Let's go to calendars. Under connect, I have announcements, calendar, members. We'll go to calendar here, calendar there. Our calendars look pretty much the same. We haven't done any setting up of calendars. So until you do something different, everybody's going to get the same view. Now we haven't set up our calendars at all. So right now we're getting nothing. Let's go ahead and set up our calendars. Wait, let me check my outline. There's one more thing before we get into calendars, and that's mailing list, but that's on the admin side too. So we'll put a pin in calendars, come back in just a second. Let me go ahead and log out. Oops. Going from mobile to view and back again, that's messing up with my menu. Sign out. And by the way, if you have any questions about users, you can put them in at this time. Let's see. Looks like we're in good shape. There's a few questions where, yeah, we'll get into some of those things later on during the Q&A. But thank you very much for your feedback. It's always good to see that active participation. All right, I'm going to sign back in as a admin. So I'm going to get my admin toolbar. And remember, this is the full access. No other role gets this. And I did see a question that says, how many administrators can I have? Well, that depends on your plan. If you're using our free plan, it's 1. If you're using our trial, it's 1. If you're using our standard, it's 2. If you're using our advanced, I believe it's 6, and our premium is unlimited. All right, we're back here as an admin. You can see everything. Now let's take a look at some of these other things that are here. So we talked about email and role. You can click on these to see what roles people have kind of sorted in there. When you click on it, you'll also see, you can click on last sign in and see when they last actually signed into it. Now it's a little out of date with the different sessions, like I just signed in a minute ago, but it's looking at my last sign in, not my current sign in for me. But users, of course, it's looking at the last one for them, which may still be current. Now, you'll also notice that you've got this listed here. This is saying whether they're listed in the directory or not. You can change that by clicking on and selecting them and saying list or unlist. But if somebody has unlisted themselves, you can't list them back in. So those are what the other fields are. It also says up here, listing everyone from your Church360 members account. So you know where those people are coming from. Let's move over here to the lower left-hand side where it says, or middle left, where it says mailing lists. What are mailing lists? Well, it's kind of what it sounds like. List of people that you can email. We utilize a tool called the Email Relay Service. This is a tool our team built. It's also utilized in Church360 members, where when you go to email somebody, it will open up your default email client and generate an email to go to multiple people. So let's take a look at what I mean by that. If you look here, there's everyone. When I click select that and I create mailing list, whoops, sorry, not create mailing list, email down here at the bottom. It's going to open up my default email client, which in this case is Microsoft Outlook. And I also have it closed, so it's going to take a second. I will, oops, there we go. It's going to be hard to see. I apologize. I can't zoom in anymore, but I can paste it down here and zoom in to show you what it looks like. See, this is, it says, I just paste it from right up here. It's everyone, and it has what's called a GUID on there. And that is a generic user ID kind of idea. I think that's what it stands for. But it's a bunch of characters, and it makes it very unique. There's my calendar reminders, I apologize. So it allows us to know exactly who to send this to. So when I send this email, it doesn't go to your users directly, it goes to our servers, and then we divide it up one at a time and relay it, that's the name, relay it to those individual people. So it looks like it's just going to them. They don't see anybody else's email addresses, which keeps it secure. I know that you've probably all experienced that horrible reply all when you have 60 email addresses on there and your inbox gets filled. Unite doesn't like that. We won't do that. It'll always go directly to the sender and no one else. So if you are wanting that reply all, you'll have to do a regular email. But this at least allows you to send mass emails without worrying about any kind of reply all or any limits that your email client may put on there. There's usually a character limit under the 2, and it leads you to like 70 something email addresses, depending on the length. So this allows you to get past that in a very legal way. You're not breaking any rules or anything because it's just sending individual emails to everybody, but you're not having to be the one to do that. Close this. So mailing list allows you to create different lists. So maybe you want church leadership as your mailing list. When you create that list, now you can go in and select people. Now I'll caution you, The people that are available are those that have been invited. They don't necessarily have to sign up, but they have to have been invited, and that means they have to have an email list. So I only have 2 people right now who are able to be on a mailing list. But if I click save, now I have this mailing list available. And if I create another one, let's see, we'll just say top leadership. Now I also have the ability to include an email list or a mailing list within my mailing list. So you can start seeing this hierarchical structure. So you could create all of your ministries as individual mailing lists, and then you could create a mailing list that says all ministries and have that the individual mailing list underneath it. So again, hierarchical structure is what we're going for there. I hope that makes sense. I don't have a lot of users in here, so I can't really show it. But what we can do, we can go over here to users. I've got a number of fake addresses, or what I think are fake addresses, so I'm going to do that. I can select the people who have email addresses, click change role, make them users, update it. They've been invited now. In just a second, there we go, change 4 roles. Now I may have to refresh. Nope, I don't even have to refresh. You see now they are all in there, even though they haven't necessarily accepted the invitation, but we've given them that chance to. Let's see, what else do I want to cover on mailing lists? I feel like that was too short. If you have questions about mailing lists, let me know. I should show you one other thing here. Close out of there. If I go to my user profile, it's this little button up in the top right, and I go to settings. Down here, I have my user settings and credentials. Down here, I can update as a user, and this applies to everybody who logs in. As a user, I can update my email preferences to say what I want to get. So if I want to opt out of mailing lists, I am allowed to do that. Those are what we call direct emails, message sent from church administration or group leaders. Now, notification emails we'll be getting into, but this is a relatively new feature, and this is to allow your users to tell you what they want to receive or what they don't want to receive. So that's what this is here. If somebody accidentally opts out of an email address or emails from you, this is where they can go to opt back in. Very good. Let's move into events. One of the default pages, one of the only default pages in Church360 Unite is the calendar. Now, it's hard to clarify what calendar means with names because in Church360 members, we call it events because the word calendar is actually a collection of events. And this page is actually multiple calendars. But I think what resonates most with users is that one word of calendar. And so that's why we call it that. You can have as many different calendars as you want, but you can only have one calendar page on your primary church website. There's group calendars, which we'll look at in a bit. But this is your calendar page, and there's nothing going on right now. It even tells you that you have not set up any calendars for Church360 Unite. Visit the calendars tab and setting to do so. We'll click on that. That actually takes you up to settings and calendars. Now, only administrators see that message because only administrators can go and update this. Uh-oh, well, that's new. Didn't do that before. Let's go ahead and just refresh. I bet you I just clicked the link too many times. There we go. So there's our calendars. We already have a lot of calendars in there, but they're not set up yet for Unite. These all came from Church360 members. So what calendars do we want to show? Well, first off, let's talk about the different types. We have standard calendars that are in every account: worship, education, and fellowship. These are default. You can't delete them. There's some reports tied to them. Then we have anniversary calendars: baptisms, birthdays, confirmation anniversaries, death, pastoral visits, wedding anniversaries. These are calendars that are based on people data and members. You don't get this with a standard account. If you have a church management software, you get those, but you don't have that without it. So that's the other thing. I mentioned there's a few things, but primarily it's that households. Maybe I didn't mention there's a few things. There are a few things. Households is one of them. Calendars are the other. The first thing I want to do is say people can see the worship. Everyone, not just users, but everyone can see the worship calendar. And I want to make it a different color. I want to make it a dark red. I want everyone to be able to see the fellowship events, not just users, everyone. And we're going to make that an orange. And I want everyone to be able to see education events. We're going to keep that green, but we're going to make it a dark green. Now, anniversaries, baptism anniversaries. I only want users to see that. I'll make that a nice blue. Birthdays, users should be able to see that. And I'll make that a lighter orange. Confirmation anniversaries, that's okay. Deaths, yeah, we'll make users be able to see that, and we'll do that a dark gray. Pastoral visits, nope, that doesn't need to be in there. Wedding anniversaries, sure, users can see that, and we'll make that, make that a light gray, almost white. So I've added a number of calendars. You can now see the permission levels here, visible to users, visible to everyone. I should also mention that if you use Google Calendar as your master church calendar, you can go in here, include events from Google Calendar. It'll open up a separate window where you can connect your Google account. This is a read-only connection. So I'm going to close out of that because I'm not actually going to continue with that. It's a read-only connection. You can bring your events in and display them, but you don't have all the features that I'll be showing you in just a few minutes. So just a fair warning. All right, let's go ahead and X out of this. I'm going to go to the calendars and refresh. All right, well, look at that. We've got some events. So all my little messages from before don't show up. Look at all these events. The colors that I've used are in here. I can see there's my baptism birthdays, there's my worship events. I don't have any education events or fellowship events, but we can add one in. There's my different birthdays. And over here on the right, well, first off, I have the ability to switch between month and week view. But on the far right, let's switch to month view, I can choose which calendars I want to see. So maybe I don't want to see baptisms or birthdays or deaths or wedding anniversaries. I just want to see actual events. There you go. You can do that. You can, in fact, only see worship or maybe just birthdays. So you have that ability to set that as a user. And users means user and everybody above. So you don't set it for administrators, you don't set it for designers. If you can log in, you can see it. Let me go back here to my non-logged in site. Oops, wrong one. This is my site where I'm logged out. I don't have a user account. When I reload, this is your public view. I can go over here and see public events only. I can't even see that there's other calendars, but it defaults it to showing those different calendars. So this one page looks different whether you are logged in or logged out. That changes your experience. So again, going back to permissions, we want to show you the right information at the right point. If you're logged out, you should be able to see those public events. Very good. Let's go back into my logged in view. Let's click on an event and see what it looks like. When I click on an event, now keep in mind I am an administrator, so I can do a bit more. I can see date, time, I can see if I can let them know if I'm going or not. When I click I'm going, now I can add reminders. I can change it here and say, yeah, send me a reminder. Let's do the day before and maybe 3 days before and update that. Now, because I've logged in with an email address, I will get an email reminder a day before and 3 days before. If I'm not going, then I'm not going to get any reminders, but I've RSVP'd for the event. So I don't need a reminder because I've already said I can't go. If I am going, then I can change that. I can also put comments on here. Really looking forward to worship. Post that, and others can see that. Not the most helpful comment, but I can share it. You can also look over here and see participants. And the participants for this event are shown. Now that's how you interact as a user. And we'll look at that in a little while, but let's go back to calendars, or to my calendar. I'm an administrator, so I can create an event. Let's go here. I can either click new event in the right-hand corner, or I can click here on the calendar itself. New event. Let's call this Coffee and Donuts. This is a fellowship event. I could call it an educational event, but I'm not going to. I can add multiple calendars to this. So one event can be on more than one calendar. Fellowship Hall for a fellowship event. And we'll do that at 8:00 a.m. for an hour. And we'll say this event repeats. Now I can put in my schedule every single, we'll say, month on the first Thursday and the third Thursday. Starting now, never ending. I can say, join us for coffee, donuts, and fellowship every first and third, Thursday. I think I meant to put Tuesday. We'll put Tuesday. Tuesday of the month. And I can invite people. So I can look here and it'll say anybody that is a member. It'll only send invitations to people who have an email. And then I can set the standard reminders, 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week. And I'll create the event. We'll give it a second. Now you can see here are all the details. You can see the description, you can see the date, the location. Under participants, you can see those who haven't responded. It'll only show those who have an account, who have a user, or who've been invited, I should say. And now when I go back to calendar, there it is. First and third. There's the first one of June, and that's the first date that I put it in. So it repeats the first and third. And it'll continue on into the future. And if I take off the fellowship calendar, it'll go away. If I go back to my logged out view and just refresh it, it'll show up. So this can become your primary calendar for all events, whether they are for the public or just certain leaders in your congregation. Let's move into groups. Groups is a big project, and we've got about 30 minutes to go through this. So let's get started. We've covered a number of things so far in our training course. We've covered pages where you can add content. We've covered users where you can invite people to participate in your site. And we've covered events, which is a calendar of multiple events. You have ministries within your congregation, or boards, or teams, or subsets within your congregation who really need to do their own communication in those same ways. They'll have different information they want to put on a page. They'll have events that they'll want to share. They'll have individuals they'll want to communicate with. Essentially, they need their own sites, but it's not a good strategy to have Christ Community Church boardofelders.com. You know, that's, you start managing multiple websites then. So let's look at the example of Vacation Bible School. It's going to be different this year because of the coronavirus. Most Bible schools probably won't be in person. They're moving online in a lot of cases. So you'll want to have a separate experience, a separate website experience for Vacation Bible School, because there's a lot of information to share. But you don't want to build a completely different site and pay for a completely different site or link to a completely different site. You can do all of that with Unite using groups. So I'm going to go up to Pages as an administrator. And I mentioned the other day, when you go and click New Page, you have blank page, you have a feed page. We covered those, but this is a group page. You can add a group page to your site. You could add as many group pages as you want. So I'm going to click Create, and we're going to call this 2020 Vacation Bible School. And when I save that, you'll notice I have a different kind of icon with a little person in a circle, and I'll have a URL that says Groups Vacation 2020 Vacation Bible School. When I click on that page from here, I am taken to my group page, and it looks a little different than a normal page. First off, I have my own navigation. Now, it's not the same as this navigation. The site navigation is still there. But on the lower right-hand side, you can see I've got a number of different pages there. 2020 Vacation Bible School is my title, and I have that right there. My discussion, events, members, other group, we're going to cover all of that. But let's start by saying, what do we want to do with this site? Well, first off, who's our audience? We've got a number of different people. We've got the public who we want to invite to Vacation Bible School. We have our users, the members who log in and interact on our site, the people who are already part of our church that we may want to show something different. We have our team leaders, our Vacation Bible School leaders, who need to share information with each other. And then finally, you have your site administrators who need to be able to go in there and update things as possible. So a group leader might be a little bit different. We can manage all of this under Edit This Group. I'll click Edit This Group, and I get a completely separate settings page. It's still all contained within what I'd call the white area. So your menu up here, your logo, all of that stays the same. So it is a site within a site. It is not a separate site. It is not a parallel site. It is within your church website. So the first thing we do is we put in our title, which we already did, but we can change it if we want. So if we want to call it Rainforest Explorers, we can do that. Then we can put in our description. Well, this is the one we're doing, and I will just steal some copy right in here and paste it in. All right, that's what we're going to say about Vacation Bible School, and then I'll say, join us June 8th to 12th, 2020, as we host our first online VBS. Now we get into pages. So we've already gone through pages for your website. This is pages for your group. So think about this again in that hierarchical level. You have your church website at the top, and then you have these almost micro sites. We call them groups underneath. And within the group, you can have individual pages that are just part of that group. Well, what kind of things would we want to do? We might want to have the lessons. We might want to have the music. We might want to have downloads. So as we go through and add these pages, now we're starting to build out a potential menu. Well, just like within our main pages, we have active menu items and available menu items. You see, I can go to my 2020 Vacation Bible School page without having it in the menu. I might want it in the menu, it's an option. Well, in the same way, you can have group pages that are either in the menu or not. There's one difference though. Here under the menu, we start to get long. We don't want you to have a page where the menu is longer than the content. And so we've limited to 3 pages that are able to be shown. So as you click on these, you get them added here on the right-hand side. Now you don't have as many options. You can't change the order of them, and you only have those 3. We're just trying to prevent it from being too full. Now you can add other pages. So you might want to say something like photos, but you can't add it to the menu. You only have 3 that are available to add to the menu. And then you have some warnings. It says, remember, your group homepage will be visible to others while it is in draft status. So we'll have to update that. And remember, linking to a draft page will not a group leader or site administrator will render a what's called a 404 page, a not found page. So you'll want to make sure you watch these permission levels. You want them to be turned public before you're ready to start sharing links. Now, we'll come back to this in a second. We have to save these changes before this is updated. But the last thing we have here is who can join this group. Do you want this to be a group available to anybody or to just those that you invite? Let's narrow our definition. When I say anyone, though, I mean users of your website, those people who can log in. Public people cannot log in, and therefore they cannot join groups, but they might be able to see some of the information. So let's go ahead. I'm going to update this group and say anyone who is logged in. This is a event that is open to everybody in our church, therefore I will let them join. But something like the Board of Elders, that is an invitation only kind of group. You don't want everybody to be able to log in and see stuff. So we're going to click Update Group. And I apologize if you hear clanking in the background. They're working on our ceilings here. All right, next, I have my different pages here. Let's go back to edit this group. And now I have permission levels. This is where you can get rather advanced. So think about Vacation Bible School and what you might want to do with it. Well, first off, you want to send people to this who are not involved in your church at all, the community. This is a great way to bring people and connect them with your church. So I want my homepage to be public. Now the discussion board, this is for users to interact. I don't want that to be public because public people can't post discussions. So I'll leave this as Unite users right there. My events page, which is our calendar of events, really should be public because I want people to see when VBS is and any other corresponding events that are tied to that. My downloads page, though, you have to be part of the group to access the downloads. My lessons, same thing. My music, same things. My photos, well, maybe not everybody. You know, certainly Unite users might have some issues there. Even group members, you may want to leave photos just for group leaders until you have the chance to sift through them, find the people who don't want to be in pictures, take them out. You know, there might be some reason to do that. And same with members. You may not want to show everybody who's involved in that group. So you also have the option under discussion and events to not use those. We don't put that under everything because if you don't want downloads, then just don't create a downloads page. Like there's no reason to, or you go delete it. But a discussion and events, you can't delete those, but you can turn them off. All right, we'll go ahead and update this group. You'll see how I'm kind of doing the same things I did the other day, but in a more focused setting. Now we'll go in, this is our home page. Let's click Edit Page. Let's see what you have here. While you have the menu on the right-hand side making your page smaller, you still have all the available tools. So you still can change this to public. You can still change your title. We'll call this VBS. We can still go and copy and paste a description to put into the search engines. Join us June 8th through 12th, 2020 for our first online VBS. I'll click publish, and now this page is publicly available because the settings are public and the status is published. Let's add a little bit of content. I can click, just like I do with my other cells, I click edit. And now I can go and add things like an image. We'll go ahead and I saved some images before. There's an image. And then I can put in some information. Oops. I still have all my styles that are available. And if I wanted to put in a registration form, oops, we'll just say register today. I can do a call to action, make it centered, link it, and I can go to vbsmate.com, whatever my URL is for registering. So I can create this nice page. I'll click, first off, save changes in the cell, then publish it. Go out of edit page, there we go. So that's looking pretty good. Now, remember, not all of these pages are available. If I go to downloads, it's in a draft status. If I mark it as published, it's still not publicly available. You have to log in to see it. So let's go back here. We'll add another image in, or add an image. I'll go upload it. I made this one a slightly different size. So if I wanted to say lesson 1 PDF or download lesson 1 PDF, maybe I want to put a little bit of details in it. Let's see, what is my lesson for the day? I'll add some details. I want to make this start to look like a nice site, just so that as you guys are looking at it, you can see it. Because you will be able to go in and access this. Let's see. Where did it go? Here is lesson 1. So we'll go paste this in. I'm doing this in probably more detail than needed, but I'm really curious to see what you think. Oh yeah, it's already kind of bold anyways, so we won't worry about too much, but we'll put this in under call to actions and center. And then we can link this to a file if we wanted to. Link to a file for download. I don't think I have any of those right now. I'm just going to go ahead and link it to an image so they can download an image. But that way it's at least a link. So with all of that, you see we're kind of putting together a nice looking site, if I do say so myself. Let's go back to our pages and take this item and put it in our menu under ministries. Oops. And you can see the drag and drop, you got to be careful with it. There we go. And I'll click Save Changes. And then I will exit out here. Let's go to the home page and add another banner. So you see that if we go to edit page, we did this the other day, but I want to add a link to Vacation Bible School. So I'm going to go ahead and click settings, edit. This is my different options here. We'll go add image, select. I'm going to upload an image that I created before, VBS banner. Let's see. There it is. I'll click add, and I'll put that same information. Join us for Vacation Bible School, our first ever online VBS, June 8th through 12th, 2020. Register today. Linkable. Do we want a link? Yes, to a Unite page. Where are we going? Group. This has been added to the bottom. This will take you to the group homepage. And I've added everything, so I'll click Save. I'll click Publish. And let's close out of edit mode and see what it looks like. There we go. See, we have that very nice looking site with the caption. It fits our theme, and people will be able to see it now. Let's log out. And then let's log back in as our user again. We'll sign in. And then we'll do the split screen so you can see the user login and the public login. Sorry, not public login, public view. So let's go to the home page. All right, so again, you can tell the difference because one's sign in, one is already signed in. Well, our banners and everything look the same. This is stretched because of mobile, but that's okay. There is our banner. I'm gonna click on it and then, oops, wrong one. There is our banner again. Now you'll notice that the navigation shows up first, and there's quite a bit on mobile. We probably could improve that a little bit, but we have the ability to access the page. I'm just seeing different things. You see, as a user, I'm logged in, I can see discussion and events, but as a public person, I can only see the home page and the events view. There's my custom calendar just for that group. If I go in here and I click on discussion, I can participate in that. I'm going to click on join this group though. I want to become part of the group. Now I get the downloads. If I click on downloads, I can get this page. So I can see things that the public view cannot see because I'm signed in. And if I expand this, go full width, you can see the menu goes over here. I also have membership settings. As a user of the group, I don't have group settings. But if I go to membership settings, I can change my email notifications. This is pretty self-explanatory, so I'm not going to get into too much here. But I wanted to call out just this unique experience that I get as a member of the group. And then I have my register today. I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions about groups or anything else, let me know. There's one more thing I need to show you in groups before we wrap up for today. I'm going to sign out. I'm going to sign back in as an administrator. Actually, there's two more things. I really need to pay closer attention to my outline. I have it right here. The first thing I want to talk about is group members. Oh yeah, and there's my ministries vacation Bible school up there. If I go in here to members, because I created the group, I'm automatically the group leader. We have to have a leader to start. But as the group leader, I could then go and say, Joe Tester, I want to change your role to be the leader. And then I'm going to demote myself to a member. Now, as an administrator role, I still have the ability to manage the group because somebody needs to be able to do that. But Joe could also manage the group. And now Joe has full access to do everything that I just did in the group, not outside of that. So when you think about this, this adds a whole nother layer of permissions. So users can become group leaders, which means they can manage their own site. So you don't necessarily have to take advantage of all of the group tools. Maybe you want a public-facing site for your cancer care ministry, but it's not the kind of group that's going to log in and interact. So you just want to give that cancer care ministry leader the ability to manage their own page. Or I often use the youth leader. Youth leaders should be able to manage their own stuff. They don't need to be able to go and manage everything. So you can create pages that are groups and take advantage of certain portions of the group features to really create a dynamic website. You'll notice here under members, you can also add members. You can invite people who have email addresses. So you can either just add them right away or send them an invitation. You can also use the selection here and do the email. So you can email selected, email all, and this brings in the email relay feature. Not only does it bring it in for the administrator, but it's a group leader tool. So now the group leaders can email the people they need to email without being able to email the entire congregation. You see, that's how we kind of handle those permissions. So while only administrators can email the church as a whole, I'll just close out of this. Group leaders can email the people they need to. So I've had that question, well, why do you limit it to just the admins? Well, it's because we also allow it here within groups. It's the right context. You don't want to give it to everybody, but it's the right context. All right, let's see. The other thing I want to show is events. I can go in here, we'll go into June, and I'm going to put here starting June 8th, a new event. We're going to call it Vacation Bible School. It takes place everywhere at the church. It's from, it's online actually. I keep forgetting, online. We're going to do it from 9 o'clock a.m. on June 8th to 12 o'clock p.m. on June 8th. But we're going to repeat this. We're going to repeat it weekly, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but end it that last Friday. And I can put in a little bit of copy that I don't need to type out. And I can invite people in my group. I can do my own custom reminders and create that event. Now remember, this is only on our calendar here that this has been added, but on our group settings, we made it so that the events, our calendar, is publicly available, which means if I go back into my logged out view, my public view, and I reload, when I go to events, I will be able to see that. Now, remember, we have our master calendar. If I go under settings and I go to calendars, again, I'm logged in now. I'm sorry to switch back and forth. I just want to show you these things. If I go here, I see 2020 Vacation Bible School. Well, because this is a group calendar, I can't manage it. So this calendar is managed by the group leader like we showed. So if I am logged out and I go to calendars, I'm back in my logged out view. Sorry, I know it's jumping around. If I go to June, I can still see that. Now this is showing up. Oh, I have it under education. Let me take out education. That was from a different training. You see, I use the same thing over and over again. Now I have the ability to see that calendar intermixed with any other calendars. It does say it's a group calendar, but those events show up on the master church calendar. So you see how this all ties together? It becomes really powerful, and I know it kind of gets advanced and in the weeds, but it's the right context. You can pick on each one of these group things. Who sees this and where? I don't know, I get really excited when I talk about this. So that is how these different groups interact. Let me go ahead and go back here, close out of this. We're gonna go, I'm logged in as the administrator, but I'm gonna go back to the calendar. You see it shows up here as well. And remember, you can choose who sees that. So if only users see it, it'll show up on this side, but not the public side. So it gets very granular. All right, I covered a lot. We talked about a number of different things, and I know we've got some good questions in there. So I'm going to switch back to my PowerPoint. Before I get into questions, let me just tell you how you can dig deeper. We have plenty of training resources available. Our training webinars are all recorded and put with links at 360unite.com/training, and our future training events are there. We have a product updates blog where new features and sometimes just training on old features or existing features show up. And then our resource has a collection of all of those things. But we also have our online help center managed by our software support team. And there's a lot of things you can do there in terms of interacting with other users, posting questions and such. You can reach out to our support team via email or phone number Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 5:00 p.m. Central Time. So a few ground rules for questions and answers. Type your questions in the GoToWebinar chat where it says questions. It works like a chat functionality. And remember, we are recording this and sharing the recording, so you don't need to ask. You'll get it, don't worry. And if you're watching this recording, you can't ask questions live, but you can send them to our support team. So I'm going to take a quick drink and we will see what kind of questions we have today. All right, next up, is there recommended sources for image subscription? I'm not sure exactly what you mean by image subscription. Either church school specific, efficient for web publishing, other considerations, people versus events, pictures versus caricatures, etc. Mike is asking that. Mike, I may need you to give me a little bit more details. I think you're still watching. I'm not sure what you mean by image subscription. Oh, Jordan just mentioned and said, I think you're talking about stock images. Thank you very much, Jordan. I think that makes much more sense than what I was thinking. So are there places? Well, I'll give you a couple examples. If you go to lightstock.com, Lightstock is a stock photography site for faith-based organizations. You'll see that some of that stuff that we use came straight from them. I like using them. I think that, well, for a while they used to say cheese-free photography. There's some cheesy things in there, but most of them are just really high quality. Now there's some different plans. If you go, let's see, we have I think you can only pay for credits. Yeah, you can pay as you go, individual credits, or do subscriptions. We do a subscription, and I forget exactly what it is. It can get a little pricey, but they're really good stuff. Another one that I like going to is unsplash.com. This is royalty-free, usable images. This is not faith-based, so be careful as you look here. There's some things that end up being a little risque, but if you put your searches in correctly, it's good, and usually their homepage is just fine. There's some really high quality photos on here. But again, it's not faith-based, so you're gonna have to sift through a bunch of stuff. And again, I don't typically see many bad ones, but occasionally I'll be scrolling through and be like, oh, that's maybe not the most appropriate. So words of caution for you. But those are the two ones. And then there's plenty of other recommendations. I think we even have a blog post on our site. If you go to concordiatechnology.org, you should be able to find that. So, all right. I commented on the number of admins, but let's show for sure. Mary Fran was asking that. If you go to 360unite.com, if you're not sure what plan you have, that might make this a little bit difficult, but we have, 2, 6, and unlimited. So the free trial is 1, the standard edition is 2, the advanced edition is 6, and the unlimited is unlimited. Let's see, what's next? Can users add their photos to the record? Deb, that's a great question, and I didn't show that before, and I should have. If you go up to your profile, go to Welcome Peter, or whatever the name is logged in. Did I click on it? I think I just selected it. There we go. I can click on my photo and use it. I can use what's called a gravatar, which is a globally recognized avatar image. I can use the custom, or if you have Church360 members, you can choose that. And so yes, you can. And we'll update it. There you go. Kathy asks, I've had members say they thought they had to log in to view our videos. It depends on if you have that page set to public or private. I talked about this quite a bit the other day, but I should have shown it here. Remember, you can make pages, individual pages, public or private, saying members only. If they have to log in to see your videos, it's likely that that page is set to members only. All right. Christine is saying, every time I send a mass email, I receive mailer daemon responses. I know their email is correct because it works when I send an email not using the mass email feature. Do you know what causes this and how it can be corrected? There's a number of different things. Often it's the type of content you put in there. Sometimes it's just the fact that our domain was blocked by somebody from that email address. There's a lot of different reasons. I would recommend talking to our support team. We're going to get into some of those logs tomorrow, the advanced stuff, so I can show you some of that as well. Next up, Karen has already left, but she says, if a member signs in and changes their profile and you upload to Shepherd Staff, will it change their profile in Shepherd Staff? That connection with Shepherd Staff, which I'll cover tomorrow, does not include photos, but their information does. So they're like emails, their phone numbers. So I guess you didn't say photos, I assumed. You say profile information. Sorry for that. For a typical member, if the member information and calendar is on Unite, Church360 Unite, is there any reason to have login to Church360 members? No. For the regular member at your church, no, there's not. We typically suggest that only Unite is used for having all your members log in. Now, Church360 members, volunteers who enter attendance or offerings, certainly, but I wouldn't give an access to all of your members to that. Many of the no phone number or email listed entries in the member directory are a result of those individuals being under the individual and not in the household section because they have different entries. You can see that person's data when you click on the individual names. Thanks for bringing that up, Judy. I should have pointed that out. If you have Church360 members or Shepherd Staff, you get the household view. If you see no listed phone numbers or no listed emails, that is for the household. But if you click on the person, you will get their information. So that's the distinction between households and individuals. So Judy, thanks for bringing that up. Mark is asking, how is mail all, as you described, different from a blind copy? The end result isn't too different. But on the front end of things, when you blind copy a lot of people, you are limited to a certain number of characters, just like in the two. So if you're sending it to, I don't know, 10 people, there's really not much difference. You won't be able to track the emails in Unite, which I'm going to show you tomorrow in more detail. You aren't going to be able to keep the most updated email address. You'll have to manually do that, which means you'll have to keep your contacts in your email client. You're probably already doing that, so that's not a big deal. But if they update their information online on your Unite site, you'll always get the updated email with Unite, whereas you won't always with your contacts. But the big difference really is that the number that you can send to. We've tried to make it very familiar, and that's why it is similar to BCC. So if you prefer to use that, go for it. Like you said, it's very similar. And then our mailing list dynamic as users come and go. Yes, they are, unless you specifically enter in that individual and you're referencing, I didn't say that right. If you go here to mailing lists, if you are saying like church leadership are these people, well then that is static list, meaning you've assigned those people will always be the ones. People aren't going to come and go out of church leadership unless you add them. Now you can also add groups. I didn't show that, I should have. Groups is the third type of list that you can put into an email list. So again, hierarchical structure is what we were going for there. As people come and leave that group, then yes, you can do that. It's dynamic that way. All right. When you send an email through the website, does it show you as the sender of the email? Yes, it does. It's coming out of your email. It copies that in the relay. And then Christine clarified. Oh, I skipped that question. I should. Christine asked two related questions. Is users everyone and members, or only those who have a user role in Unite? And she says, sorry, I meant when emailing everyone. Does that include everyone or just those who have a user role? It's just those who have a user role. Or at least those who've been invited. Jordan didn't clarify that in there. Yep. So anybody you've invited will be under that everyone, not everyone in your database. Is there a way to update the email preferences so everyone gets your mass emails? We have a lot of members not getting our mass emails. So if you invite people, they will receive it by default. If they're not getting the messages, there's a number of reasons why not. And that's where we'll get into the email log tomorrow. We'll need to send a few emails. What I want to do is test that out and prep that so you can see some results. So that's why I'm not showing that today. That's, again, advanced stuff, and that's under what we call the email log on the outline for tomorrow. Let's keep going. That was from Debbie. For those who can't find the original invitation, is there a way to resend an invitation? Mike is asking that. So you can see here, it says Dave Abbott was invited about an hour ago. Next to that, there's a little button with two arrows. When you click on that, it'll resend the invitation. That's how you go and re-invite them. I thought it put a message up there, but it doesn't. That's okay. That's what it does. All right, next up. Does the group page need to be under navigation heading, or can it be its own navigation heading? I'm thinking of a preschool. Well, you can place it within your navigation. So if we go here to pages and we wanted to take it out of here, put it at that same level, we click Save Changes. Now it's getting pretty big. It'll be there, but not as a drop down. So if you go here, click on VBS, it'll take you to that page. So a preschool could work in that very same way, where you have preschool, and then when you go in here, you can see the different pages underneath that. That's a really good idea, honestly. I like that approach of having your preschool as a group. And then the last question of the day that I have here from Stephanie, that last one was from Shar. Stephanie says, how do I get a custom group of members to be in Unite and not all members? For example, members with envelope numbers. Well, there isn't the same smart group that you have in Church360 members. So you'll have to know who are in them, but to invite individual users, and not everybody, you simply select their names here. So not all of the data that's in members flows across, because not all of it's relevant, like offering envelopes. But you can select a number of people, then go and click Change Role, and it'll tell you Dave Abbott and 8 others. Change that role, and it'll also tell you those who don't have email addresses. So I hope that helps with that. It'll tell you exactly who you're inviting, but you'll have to get that list elsewhere. All right, well, we are just 1 minute short of time. I think I answered pretty much all the questions that have been asked. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. Thank you so much for watching today. Special thanks to Jordan for being on the line and answering those questions. I really appreciate you being here. That way, if people have to leave, they still get their answer before they leave. And for those of you who stuck around for the Q&A, you got to hear the benefit of those answers overall. Tomorrow is our last session, session 4 in our training series. It'll be the same time, 10 o'clock Central Time in the morning, and we'll be recording that and sharing it if you can't make it. Thanks again for attending. We'll see you tomorrow.